Welcome to Chatting the Pictures. My name is Cara Finnegan, and I'm a writer, teacher, and historian of photography.
And I'm Michael Shaw. I'm a writer, a psychologist, and also publisher of Reading the Pictures.
For weeks now, images of corpses from the atrocities in Ukraine have transcended graphic warnings and typical Western media sensibilities. Among that imagery, this unique photo is as striking as evidence and truth as it is a powerful meditation on the cost of war.
This photograph was taken by Carol Guzy for ZUMA Press. It documents the massacre of Ukrainians in the town of Bucha on April 6, 2022, as investigators and volunteers carry out the grim work of burying the dead and assessing for war crimes. Over 320 bodies were recovered in the suburbs of Kyiv after towns such as Bucha and Irpin were liberated from invading Russian troops. The photo most prominently appeared in a New York Times opinion article entitled "Photographing Hell" by the Pulitzer Prize-winning photographer David Kennerly.
This singular photo evokes such a visceral response. On the one hand, there's no doubt about what we're seeing. We're seeing death in war. We're seeing a body bag about to be zipped up. We're looking at the lifeless eyes and face of someone who has been murdered. We're seeing evidence of trauma and blood. But on the other hand, the photo also taps into the role of imagination in photography, doesn't it? Even in news photography, a photo can really foster our thinking and invite us to ask questions. So in that op-ed piece, David Kennerly said this image made him wonder, what did this man see at the moment of his death? I find myself asking other questions too, prompted to imagine this man and what he went through, what happened to him, who did this, but also questions like who loved him, who mourns him.
David Kennerly, who photographed the Vietnam War and is certainly someone who studies photography of all kinds, said in that op-ed he had never seen a photo like this before. This photo really is extraordinary for its liminal quality. It feels as if the man is as much alive as dead. And I think that the fact his eye is open is also powerfully resonant with the Ukrainian will. Also, if you're looking at this photograph, there are other details that inform, including the presence of raindrops and the blurry background of the brown, wet earth. Particularly, though, the bag is open sideways just enough for us to look inside and to identify with his face. And the bag also creates this enveloping shadow, so it's not just the open eye, but also the half light and half darkness that also powerfully communicates the in-between.
I think you're right. And the shadows, for me, almost connote kind of the closing of a lens, right? So you can imagine those shadows slowly closing in a circle around the man's face, just as you might imagine that body bag is going to get zipped. Another reason why this photo lives, as you said, in this liminal space is because the viewer is only seeing so much, and it's very clear that at a certain point, we're not going to be able to see any more. And in that way, the photo, I think, really does invite a broader conversation about the way that we're seeing death or not seeing death in the photography coming out of this conflict. In Kennerly's piece, he complains about the graphic image warnings and essentially says we need more of these kinds of images so that we truly understand what war is.
We always want to talk about graphic images in the context of the times and events. We've seen a progression over the 2 months of this war in the treatment of death in Ukraine. We did a Chatting the Pictures about a month in with photos by Ron Haviv. Besides a corpse at a distance, the video showed pictures of dead Russians at a train track that were more tasteful and oblique. Shortly thereafter, though, there was a watershed event in which Lindsay Addario of the New York Times was in Irpin at the moment a Russian shell killed a woman and her 2 children on the street. And the Times made the decision to run that really graphic and really tragic photograph on the front page. And then, with the atrocities in Bucha and Irpin, with the slaughter of citizens, many discovered with their hands tied behind their backs, it made it imperative to witness these kinds of images more fully. It's always important to talk about the justification for graphic images. In the case of Ukraine, what we have particularly today is the importance of countering not just Russian war crimes, but also propaganda and denial, the claims of fake news, where Putin's saying that the Bucha images were staged. And then, you also have this extraordinary situation of visual censorship where the Russians were actually looking for the 2 AP photographers who were left in Mariupol and tried to hunt them down. So a photo like this operates very much as evidence. The eyes as witnesses. This man being an eternal one.